Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Status Update. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there changes to the agenda?
Nope.
Hearing none. Public comment? Okay. Hearing none, we will go ahead with our first item. Well, actually, David Mendez isn't quite here yet, so we'll go ahead to, I think we'll go ahead to number 3, actually, because we've got community development at the table and we've got the person handling advisory stuff on the phone. So we'll go ahead for community development operations update with our Chief Deputy Operations of Community Development, Craig Davidson.
Good morning, Commissioners. Craig Davidson for the record, Chief Deputy Director of Operations. Director Callahan's with me. Purpose for bringing this before you is just quite a quick update of where we've been since October 21st until now and where we're going into the future in the next quarter. So basically what I did is initially I broke it down to a couple different phases of operations. Just kind of took into an assessment phase for the first phase. Obviously, you know, we made some personnel changes. We eliminated the landscape architect position and we consolidated 2 other administrative positions. We benchmarked some timelines specifically to prevent permitting some of the issues that we've had challenges with, the lengthy permit times, cycles from completion to issuance. And we determined that there's been kind of a lack of review that we have for reports in the ability to track first, second sequential reviews. So we've got a fix on that, but that's been basically a roadblock in many ways. We've actually, based on our assessment, reduced the internal review timelines, and that'll come into fruition a little later on when I show you the chart and the graphic, and you'll see the differences and the streamlining of the flow that we've changed the workflow. And Ben and his, he's kind of technically advanced. He's using AI, artificial intelligence, and plan project reviews and actually our project review meetings. What this has done for them, it still needs human interaction because you have to proof what was read, but it streamlined their processes of being able to get applicant information back to much quicker because they're able to proof it and get the recording of the pre-application back. So that's kind of a nice thing. It's in development still and still in test. Phase 2 of the operations is basically now through February 25th. We need to detail out the reports and the development we have. We've actually worked with IMS. They've actually altered our database to provide a module so that we can track those sequential reviews. We are going to go into testing immediately. It's in our test database, but after the holidays, they're gone from the 24th to January 2nd, so we need that support. And then we're going to adjust our workflow based on what we find with that. And sitting down, we've got to sit cross divisions between planning, front counter, and our permit technicians to actually be able to detail out exactly how this is going to work. It's going to create more of a burden on the front end, but on the tail end, it should lead to better workflow to get the permits out in a more timely manner. Planning division is going to have a workshop late February, early March for the professionals that they deal with, the engineers. Right now we're running about 58 to 62% of incomplete applications, which is high. They did this about 3 years ago and it reduced it in half. The goal is sustainability there because it does it in half for about 3 months, so it falls off. Ben's been tasked to look at some incentives. We've got to find some better ways to incentivize these folks to maintain that effort so that the projects don't become belabored as they have in the past. A lot of it between completions and the reviews that they have, like CUPs right now run about 9 months. We think we can get it down to about 6 with improved processes. It's going to take some work. And then on the front end, our website, it's adequate, but we really need to get the information out to the public, better examples for submission to knock off the incompleted submittals on the front end of it. And that should help facilitate better submittals. Incidentally, since the inception of the system, we're running anywhere from 6% to 13% incomplete submittals from the building permit side, which isn't too bad. We think we can reduce that. And then additionally with the Parks and Waterways, we're working to basically streamline that checklist that we've discussed. It's going to, you know, with easements, grants, MOUs and things like that to be able to make sure that the county, we can obviously have a better checklist when we have those public owned properties that we have to deal with for easements or MOUs through. So we broke out, it used to be permitting was first in, first out. We looked at the priorities based on permit time. So we came up with divisions between 2 and 3 weeks, 4 and 5 weeks. So this is where we're at currently today. 2 weeks are much simpler permits, signs, solar systems, trams, sheds. 3 weeks, decks, patio covers, some garage additions, and some smaller single-family resident additions and alterations. At 4 weeks, those are the manufactured homes. We're looking at alterations and additions to single-family residences up to 1,000 square feet and commercial tenant improvement under 1,000 square feet. 5 weeks, we're running the new single-family residences and ALUs, larger additions to the single-family residences and tenant improvement, obviously the larger ones as well. So where that's brought us to date. October, we had 575 permits submitted. Now on the bottom half of that, 204 of them were mechanical, 54 were single-family residents. November went down to 286. We had 100 mechanical, 23 SFRs. In December, as of last Friday, the 13th, there's where we stand at 84 for 30 mechanical and 7 single-family residences. I'd like to just point out, 10/21, 84 calendar days was our review time period. Little more than 2 weeks later, we got it down to 71 based on the processes we changed and just the review criteria that was set in the system settings within IMS. By mid-November, we were down to 56 days on the review cycle. And by the end of November, 44. I just checked Friday the 13th, and we are now down to 19. The latest review out is January 10th, which is pretty phenomenal. And there was 26 in the queue. That's huge from the hundreds that we were in. Of note, permit history, since Director Callahan was here in 2013, that 1,267 was the end of the year 2013. We're now at 2,500, so better than double. So our next quarter goals, we really want to get those reports instituted, so basically be able to support our operations and make very detailed analysis of where we're at. Additionally, a cost benefit to us in that would be to be able to substantiate successive reviews based on an hourly rate. The workshop I spoke about, and the Card Knox Transition Core BT, I just got a follow-up on that yesterday. They're not ready to let us know the 30-day transition period as of this date, so I promise when that occurs, I will have that letter ready for the termination with Card Knox for the board to sign. Again, our website, we definitely need to enhance it with some checklists and some more instructional information for our customer base out there. And building divisions, continually working on revising efficiency in the way they do business. We're going to initiate and complete. We've got to do some divisional collaboration training that's mainly between the permit technicians and the plans examiners, make sure they're integrated so that upon a completion review, it doesn't go to the plans examiners and all of a sudden there's missing documents or the documents that they needed to submit aren't in that packet. So that's just some collaboration training. And the big issue is to try to come up with some new incentive programs to basically increase and continued sustainment of completed project applications for the planning side of the house. Ben's done a phenomenal job and will continue to do so. And he's got a pretty innovative group that can come up with some pretty good ideas. So I'm confident that we'll get there for them. That's our goal. That's the in-state desire. We want 3 weeks to issue single-family residence permits. Subject to your questions.
Well, it really is just a couple of comments. The first one is that, and you already touched on it, you definitely want things to be double-checked if you're going to use AI. One bad work product getting released to the client, and it won't work well. And then the other is, as far as you talked about workshops. You know, one of the things that I found is that it's good to put things into a calendar and set them up on a periodic basis, whether it's annual, quarterly, semi-annually. So it's in there and it reminds people, because out of sight, out of mind, people just don't remember. And so if you can, have that on a recurring basis, that will kind of reinforce, those best practices, if you will. And I know it seems redundant after you go through it, but that's the whole point of just the continuous training and things like that, reminders. Good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very happy about that. I think that a twice-a-year training workshop that people could choose to come or not to come, we could update them on what's happening on our end, and then again remind them how to efficiently move through our process. So I think that's a great idea. So
Well, and we'll use technology to our advantage as well through Zoom and some things like
Yep.
that, so that the folks can't be here, they can be in attendance remotely.
right, yep. And then Bill, did you have any thoughts or questions?
Well, I agree with what you and Bruce have said. It's helpful to me to have a page or two sheet with dates and completion targets on. If I were to get that every 60 to 90 days, it would give me a lot of comfort in knowing that these things are moving along. But it does sound great, and I agree very much on inviting the people from the construction community to come in and do a workshop with us at least twice a year.
And there's one other thing too. These reports are going to help develop workload and metrics, and that's going to help with staffing requests. And that is something that I hope kind of spreads throughout the county, because there's too many times where, one, we're asked to increase staff because of workload, and we should be focused more on showing versus telling when it comes to that, and that no department is that unique that the law of large numbers does not apply. They may have unique situations, but eventually, over time and with enough numbers, they actually you can do good categorization of the events. So I look forward to seeing those reports.
As do I. It's in the numbers for sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go back to item 2, advisory board applications. And Ms. Masters is going to lead us through some discussion.
David should be here in about 10 minutes as well.
No problem.
Okay, so we've got advisory boards. Do you want to start with the fair, since you've already had interviews for that board?
Sure. So I am ready to go to a vote. I've got my 3 plus my 1 alternate. So I don't know how you want to go through this.
Well, it's a discussion item, so I think the most we can do is just talk about what we want.
Ready
right?
to vote, meaning it'll go to a business meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I pretty much settled in on some people. I think that would make sense.
Okay. So I don't know, maybe the most efficient is we give Sarah our papers, and then that way gives Bill a chance to review them, and then the 2 of the 3 get appointed?
Sure.
Okay? All right, and then I marked my name and okay.
Okay,
What do you want to go next?
you tell me and I'll find it.
Okay, planning and zoning, how about that? So I'm fine with reappointing the 1 person who has reapplied, and then there's 3 that I would interview: Burton, Chandler, and Merritt.
Sure.
Okay?
Was that a reappointment by you as well, Commissioner Matari, for the one that's currently on there?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I think it takes a little bit of time to really kind of,
Yes.
know the ropes on this one.
Even though we have 1, I still want to keep them all together. So just because we decided on 1, I don't want to reappoint them and then 2 weeks later appoint more people. I think it's messy that way.
Right. And then Commissioner Brooks, did you have anybody?
Does he have the forms?
He has it in the file.
Okay,
in the weekly
so,
file.
so Bill, did you want to chime in right now, or you want to get your information to Sarah tomorrow or this afternoon?
I would get my information to Sarah tomorrow.
Perfect, okay, sounds good. Aquifer Protection District. So I can go a couple different ways here. I definitely want to reappoint the three people, the three current members. And then, I'm sorry about my,
So, just so the board's aware, you've got 5 applicants. You have 4 expiring terms and 1 vacancy. So you need 5 selections.
okay,
Yeah.
so
Not much choice on this one.
I'm ready to vote then. Fine.
In fact, that's the case for a lot of these.
Yes. Okay, so then let's do ag last, because I think the rest of them, historic preservation, ready to vote, and guardians, noxious weeds, natural resource, and snowmobile advisory, and parks and waterways. So I'm ready to vote on all of those.
Okay. And you said natural resources as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leaves you with the stapled packet for the agricultural board.
Yes. So again, I don't know if you want me to go down my list of who I want to interview, or if you just want Sarah to do the 2 or 3. How do you want to do that? I got a lot checked for interviews.
Well, what's shorter? Who wasn't checked or who was checked?
I'll just go over who's checked. So Harper, Beebe, Kinsey, Cola, Ryder, Paul, Oliver, Evans, Ely, Mobbs, and Plante.
These are not checked?
They are checked.
They are checked.
They're all the checked. Yeah. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3. I did not check because they are actually on other boards.
Yeah. I'm happy to speak with them. I mean, obviously, a lot of these people we kind of have familiarity with. And so I'm fine just to speak with them. I kind of had some ideas on who I liked for the board. So after talking with some people that are not familiar with, which I think probably a lot of the same names that you're wanting to interview are going to be people I'm not familiar with. I'm
Okay.
fine with that.
Okay. So,
So interviews for the people that you just listed.
and you can have my forms, so. Okay, so are we good there? Okay. That there. All right, I think we're ready for our Justice Building update if David Mendez is ready, but if you're not, we can go on to another topic. Good morning.
David Mendez with Turner & Townsend Heery. Little computer issues this morning, so I thank you for accommodating my fast drive over here. So we've had a couple of issues that have come up that I need to report to you today, and some that have been resolved, and I have pricing. Some new issues. We had the elevator company on site. They've reviewed the construction as it's occurred, and they're going to have some additional wiring changes that are going to come up. So I don't have numbers for those yet, but we are anticipating some changes in there. Probably less than 20,000 on some wiring issues. We had one elevator issue that was resolved, and that's a $3,000 add for standby generator connection rather than so emergency power rather than a battery backup. So that's a change. I do have, and this will be will request to be on your agenda for the next business meeting, probably next week, and that's the fire assembly issues. We've been back and forth with the architect to make sure that these are ads, and it was going to be about 160-ish, and we're down to 154. So that'll be the final number that you receive. I've got that to Sarah in the mail today, so I think that will be on next week's agenda.
Monday at 2 o'clock.
Monday at 2.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll be here for that in the event that you have questions, and you'll have that packet so you can take a look at that before we talk about it. We had result from, so we've gone floor by floor as they've been as the floors have been framed out. We've gone to each floor, walked with the design team, the electrical engineer in particular, and the departments, and walked what those floor layouts are before they put drywall up. We've already processed floors, the top third floor and second floor, and now I have the numbers for the first floor and the result of that box walk. So the modifications there ended up being $7,700. And then an additional, we moved a door. I think we talked about the controversy about moving a door in one of those offices so that opens in behind a secure door. And that was another $810 just to move that door. And that's what I have to report for you right now.
Okay.
We're moving forward on the FF&E, so the furnishings for the building are moving forward. We had a meeting yesterday, we'll have another meeting today, and we'll have some preliminary choices for the departments to make. Will be on Thursday, and then I'm going to report back to you and kind of get a feel for where we need to be with these different choices. So I don't know how we're going to, I'll probably need to get with Sarah and determine what the best format for that discussion can be so that we all in our agreement what level we're going to furnish that building to. The progress on the building, we're working on the east facade of the building is the last one to get the finish. I don't know if you've noticed the lighting on the exterior and the scaffolding as it's come down, but that's starting to come together. The public can see what we're building, and I've gotten a lot of positive comments about how that looks. So,
I have too. It's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Third floor is currently being painted, so we're starting to see some real progress on the finishes there. Second floor is they've started the drywall finishes in there, so it's starting to really finish out. We're seeing the courtrooms on that second floor, the double courtrooms really coming together. First floor is a little less far. We just did our box walk on the ground level yesterday, and there'll be some modifications that we have to do there, but it's all framed out and looking good. So reviewed the contractor schedule again. They're on schedule for the first week in June as for getting our occupancy. So everything's looking good. We're still below 50% on both of our contingencies. So cost-wise, I think we're sitting right where we're hoping to be. There was an issue with that came from the box walk on the first floor, an issue with that the evidence storage needed to not have water in it. We were thinking that that was going to be an expensive fix. We've looked at some alternatives, and they're pricing that out right now, so I should be able to report to you what that result is instead of taking and doing I always call them halon systems, but they don't use that anymore because it takes all of the oxygen out of the room, which is not good for humans. So it's another system. It's a dry system that was really expensive. There's an alternative to that where we have the piping on the exterior, and we do the pipes are not loaded with water unless there's an actual fire event in that room, and then it floods that. So that should protect the evidence unless there's a fire, which would be a bad
is
thing
going to be a
anyway.
problem anyway. So
I think that's a compromise that everybody's going to be happy with. So, but should be less than half that cost. So
Okay.
I think it's a good alternative. So we'll report back to you when I get that pricing.
Fantastic. Questions?
Nope, thank you.
All right. Bill, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 4. Jonathan and I have been working on this, property fraud alert notification. So I had a constituent contact me, and apparently what is on the rise is that people are filing erroneous papers with recorder's office and messing up titles and things of that nature. So we're looking into kind of an electronic system, a software, if you will, that would alert property owners to any title work that's not been, well, just any title works, I suppose. Even if the property owner initiated the title work, they would get that report. This is just in the first look phase. I just wanted to make sure that at least one other commissioner was okay with going, putting a survey out to the public to see if this is a service they would want from the county, because it does come with about a $45,000 price tag year one, $9,000 beyond, every year after that. So I would want public input, more than just one constituent asking for this, and to see if this is something that they would support for that kind of money.
This is a software program?
Yeah, I believe so. Jonathan's been looking into it.
There we go. Sorry, Commissioner. Yeah, I just did a quick fact finding. Essentially, it is a software that integrates with the recording software that we use. And it's just an opt-in software that allows notifications to the public if anything happens on their records. The guy that I spoke to said his belief was that it's super easy for the public to use and super easy to integrate. That was his 2 cents on it.
So what do they opt in on a public-facing website, in essence?
So it would integrate with our website. We could set it up, and he said it's so easy that you don't have to even create a username. You just sign in with your first and last name pretty much, and you can opt in by parcel number. And he said it's even convenient for families that maybe want to monitor an elderly parent. They can have multiple people monitor the same parcel. That was what he said to me.
And then, sorry, I just have a bunch of questions here, but so there's no issues with respect to somebody monitoring somebody else's property. Is there a way that we can validate that it's indeed a direct relative as opposed to just anyone monitoring someone else's property?
I did ask that. It sounds like you can just monitor by parcel ID. Yeah.
Yeah. And then how are the people notified?
I believe it's SMS or email, either or.
Okay.
And the service is called, there was 3 different companies that have it, and they integrate with our recording software. I think we have HopDocs.
And then as far as what triggers it is, so the county is making changes to a property, the status of it, and then that would just trip this software to send a text message and an email.
Yep. So what he explained to me is just if any type of activity on a title happens, that would trigger an alert to go out.
And that's any kind of activity in the county's purview, not any place else.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I figured if the survey resulted that we did have wide populist support for this, we could put it in the FY26 budget and then go into deliberations and figure out what company would be best and that kind of thing. So this was just a cursory, like, hey, does anybody sound like this is good? Then we'll go to the public with it. If the public likes it, then we can do the next step.
I think it sounds like a very good idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I don't know if, I mean, the survey, the devil's always in the details. I've seen surveys with KMPO, and when they did the analysis on those surveys, a lot of them came from the same IP address, the same people, and so, I think it's a good idea. And I don't see any problem with us looking at different ways of doing this. I just wonder if there isn't an internal policy where we could just say someone could have their property flagged and we would just have somebody send an email. I mean, I don't think we have. We're going to have to spend a lot of money notifying people. I mean, you know, a lot of our meetings, well, we have big decisions and no one ever shows up and people never hear about it. So
part of the issue is if we were going to go forward, we would get all the stakeholders in the room and be able to do that. But it looks like our recording manager, Melinda Roeder's here.
So I wanted to, because this wasn't discussed with our department, I wanted to bring this up because we actually looked into this with our recording software company about 1.5 years ago, and it wasn't worth the money at that time. And we get a lot of concerns about this, but what we advise people to do is to go onto our website and they research our property. When people hear about this on the news and on the radio, they fearmonger. They don't give them all of the details. And so the fact that this was discussed without discussing it with my department really irritates me. You guys should have contacted our department and got all the details before you moved forward with finding out what was entailed.
Sure. And the purpose of bringing this up was just to see if another commissioner was even interested in pursuing this. Then all the stakeholders would have been brought in, so we make sure that we go down the right path.
Yeah, but like I said, I did look into this a couple years ago, and it wasn't worth the money that they were charging with our recording software company. And like I said, people call us all the time. They come into our office all the time. We advise for them to go onto our website and to research their property, because this notification system, number one, is not going to stop the document from being recorded.
It just notices them.
And it's not going to notify them until after the fact that it's been recorded. So it's not like it's an immediate, oh, here we go, this person's being, this is getting recorded on my property. It's not going to notify them. And even the insurance companies that do this, that offer the insurance for fraud, they notify them 2 weeks after the document's been recorded. So it's not like it's like this saving grace.
And, you bring up a great point. And so, what they do in the credit industry is that you can flag your credit so that if somebody applies for credit using your identity, and they're not you, the lender or prospective lender would have to call the phone number on record to get to you and say, hey, are you applying for this loan? Can you confirm it?
Yes.
Same thing with wire transfers, things like that. So is that something that we could look at developing as a policy, perhaps, where as something is happening, we can put a flag on a AIN that says call this number, or we would have to know they're the legitimate owner. That's the other issue, too.
Right. I guess, that could be something that we set policy for, but again, for recording purposes, if a document comes into our office, we have no way of knowing if it's fraudulent or not. Yeah. We follow statute and what's required on the document to make it recordable, which makes it public record.
And it's probably harder because there's properties filed under LLCs. So you'd have to see the documentation of the LLC to know who is indeed the controlling interests, as well as trusts and so forth.
So I can tell you as a notary, like when we have people that come into our office, one of the requirements for a document to be recorded is that a document has to be notarized. And in Idaho, it has to be notarized in their capacity. So if somebody is signing as a trustee, say somebody brought in a deed to be recorded and they want me to notarize it for them, I make them provide documentation showing that they are in fact the trustee of that trust, or if they are a member of an LLC or they're a managing partner of an entity, I make them provide documentation. So if somebody goes to another, if they go get notarized in a different state for recording purposes, we have to assume that they're following their notary law. So, but in Idaho, we have to make sure that that person is signing in their capacity. But again, it's not going to stop it from being recorded, and until legislation changes, we have to follow the law. But again, people hear about this stuff on the news and on the radio, and it fear mongers them. And I can tell you that every single time that we have verified their property, nothing has been fraudulently done. They were well aware of what has been done.
Sure.
So again, we looked into this and it wasn't worth the money. We did it about 1.5 years ago. We looked into this and it wasn't worth the money that it was going to cost. So I wish that it would have been discussed with our department, because it's looking like we're just sitting and we're not doing anything. And that's
Sure.
not the case. So I wanted that to be on record.
Sure. All right, well, thank you for your input.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, well, if it's been looked into and not worth it, then I guess we don't need to worry about that.
I'm not averse to at least sitting down with the department, because there's two components to this. There's the actual stopping of a fraudulent transaction, and then there's just the idea that somebody can be notified if it does happen to their property. Does it change anything? No. But it does give people a sense of peace of mind. Whether it's false or not is debatable. But it also, if it were to happen, the more recent it happens, the easier it is someone can address it, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't suggest that the idea isn't good, but I think, to the point made earlier, we probably should get all the parties involved before deciding whether it should even go any further.
Right, and that's why I just kind of brought it forward, because if I didn't have board support, then why would I chase down 3 or 4 departments in the
Well,
county? So
I can assure you will always have this board member support for good ideas that serve the community.
all right, I think we're up to number 5 now. So this is our Agricultural Protection Area Commission, and we're going to talk about bylaws and staggered terms and an amended resolution, which I think is on our business meeting this afternoon. And I just had one question, Pat, so I'll see if you answer it in your presentation.
Well, it's pretty short. I mean, the resolution is before you, and on this meeting for discussion, and then potentially at least also on the business meeting for approval. First, I want to say something about bylaws. We do need them. I think it'll be fairly easy to do. I'm going to model them after the existing bylaws for the Planning and Zoning Commission, so it shouldn't take very long to knock out and have those in place before their first meeting next month. Hopefully by Friday, but I can't guarantee that. I will be just announcing to the world I will be out for 2 weeks starting next week. So there's that. But going back to the resolution, the statute regarding the Agricultural Protection Area Commission allows terms to be anywhere from 3 to 6 years at the option of each Board of County Commissioners. So even though it doesn't specifically provide for staggered initial terms, the fact that you can have terms of 3 to 6 years basically allows for that if desired. So what I did is I just kind of spitballed this and had 2 positions for 3 years, 2 positions for 4 years, 1 for 5 years, but there are other possibilities that could be considered as well. And so, this isn't the only option the board has. I want to make that clear. If that looks like a good option, then we can advance it to the business meeting this afternoon. If not, then I can, change this to whatever the board wants, as long as it's, within the bounds of the statute, and then we could advance that to the business meeting. So.
Okay.
And that's the only change to the original resolution, is this initial staggered terms. And then after the initial terms, then those terms would continue to be staggered, even though they would be for 3 years each.
Okay, thoughts on that?
Well, first question, can the future board amend this resolution if something doesn't seem to be working
It could,
correctly?
yes.
Okay. So at this point, it seems like this is a good start. No one really has a crystal ball. If they do, I'd like to know, and they can look into the future. So I think it's reasonable, 3-year terms and staggering them, and let's see how it plays out.
My question, Pat, is does the commission have to be appointed prior to January 1? We established the commission, but we just haven't made our appointments.
Yeah, if you don't make the appointments by January 1st, I don't think it's a big deal, as long as, you know, they would you would basically appoint them retroactive to January 1st,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, because the amount of people that we have interviewed, I'm not going to require them to come in the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's.
Right, you know, I
for interviews.
totally get that.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I don't think that's an issue.
okay. All right. That was my only question. Bill, do you have any thoughts or questions on this?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to call for public comment because we have an executive session scheduled, so.
Leslie, can I make it just a public comment as a citizen, taking off my lawyer hat, putting on my citizen hat, just related to number 4? I think, you know, and Ms. Rader's comments were, you know, certainly all were valid, and I want to respect those, but at the same time, I want to also encourage the commissioners to at least look into this. I mean, the sooner, you know, a fraudulent transaction is detected and the actual owner is notified, the sooner they can, you know, do something about it, which that's something would normally involve basically, you know, filing a lawsuit for fraud, possibly even a criminal investigation alongside of that, and then getting a court order saying, you know, I own this property, not this fraudster that forged my signature or whatever they did.
Okay.
So I think you know, I think it's ultimately the board's decision whether the expenditure would be worth, you know, what we get. And of course, that depends on what we get. So, but I think, you know, I encourage the board to move forward on that.
Okay, thank you.
And it also minimizes any liability we might have, which is minimal to begin with, but.
Sure. All right, thank you. Okay, anybody online, Jonathan? All right, then we're going to talk about a tax deeded property, and I would put your lawyer hat back on. I'd take a motion to enter into executive session.
I move that we enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061D.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. And Bill? When you're ready.
There we go.
Okay, it's 10:56.
I move that we exit executive session 1D with staff to proceed.
I second the motion.
Bill Brooks,
Aye.
Commissioner Matari,
Aye.
Chair Duncan.
Aye. 10:56, meeting adjourned.